Hey, everybody. Bobby Klink here. Happy Monday. If you don't know me yet, like I said, my name is Bobby Klink. I'm the lawyer and online entrepreneur behind Your Online Genius. And today, I wanted to come in here and pop in and talk about something that I've been seeing a lot of in the online space lately. I'm seeing a lot of different people talk about scaling and how you need to scale your business. And I've also had a lot of experiences where I recognize that advice is actually bad advice for the particular people. Now, it's not bad advice generally, and I'm not going to tell you never to scale, but I am going to take a position that's going to make me kind of unpopular right now. I'm going to tell you that scaling isn't always the answer. And I'm going to tell you that you might not actually be ready to scale. And just, I wanted to put this out there because quite honestly, I think that scaling before you're ready is a bigger mistake than not scaling at all. And, don't reach through your screen right now, get all, upset at me, want to whack me or put a negative response here on this. I'm just telling you that you need to make sure that you're ready before you scale. Scaling is kind of like adding gas to a fire or pumping more gas into whatever it is you're doing. And that can be good if you're in the right place. But if you're not in the right place, it's bad. And I want to give you an example that maybe will bring this home to you. It has nothing to do with business. It has nothing to do with anything, but I think it's a good analogy. When I was in college, I was a freshman in college, and I was taking my brother and his girlfriend to her house, as I recall. I don't remember exactly where, but I think that's what I was doing. And I was driving my old 1989 Honda Accord. And, so I noticed it was kind of sluggish. And as we got to her house, it was really sluggish, and I noticed that there was something glowing. My engine was on fire. Literally, the car engine was on fire, not like inside where it's supposed to be, but outside. Well, at that moment, if I had put my foot on the gas and said, let's throw a lot of gas on this fire, that would have been bad, right? It wouldn't have made me go forward. It would have just led to a disaster. I kind of think in your business, it's the same thing. If you start to try to actually scale and throw fuel on the fire before you're ready, it can have the same effect. It can actually hurt your business more than helping it. So if you want to actually, build your business the right way, you have to build the business foundations before you start to scale. This is something I've seen in a lot of places where people aren't doing these things. And what I'll tell you is I made some of these mistakes when I tried to scale too early, and I see a lot of other people do it too. And when they do, it tends to have bad consequences. So I want to talk about some of the things you need to do before you're ready to scale. The first one, you have to know your ICA or your ideal customer avatar. People don't like this exercise. I don't like this exercise. I'll be honest with you. This is where I screwed the pooch royally when I first started doing this. When I started to try to build an online business, I said, no, I don't have to do that stuff. I'd heard all about these exercises. I said, no, I don't need to do that. I don't have to dig down. I don't have to listen. And I tried to scale before that. A lot of people have heard this story. I put about $10,000 into Facebook ads to build a list and then to try to launch a course without doing the work of identifying my ICA, listening to them, and making sure I knew what they wanted. And if you haven't heard the story before, what happened is I put $10,000 into these ads for all these things for a launch, and I sold precisely one course. And I think I sold it at like either $6.99 or something like that. But I did that, and that person then asked for a refund on day 29, having never looked at the course. So by trying to accelerate things and saying, I don't have to understand my audience, I don't have to actually do the work, I screwed myself. And I lost $10,000 on the deal. And that's the kind of setback that a lot of people would just mean that they go goodbye and they never actually then get to the next point of being successful if you have that happen. And so that's one of those things I like to tell people, you've got to do that work. The big shift for me was when I did that work, when I took the time to do the exercise, put myself in the shoes of my ICA, listen to them, get into groups where they hang out and just listen. It's not talking. It's not even asking questions. Yeah, that stuff's important, but just listen. So that's the first thing you've got to do. Then you have to have created an offer that your audience, that your ICA actually wants. Now, you need to hear that, what I said there. Now, hopefully for you, it's not as big a challenge as it was for me, but there's a couple of things there. Number one, you got to have an offer, and an offer is understanding what it is you're making, but it's got to be something they want. And that means it can't be, they need this, and so you're going to sell it to them. It can't be other people say they should want this. If your ICA doesn't want it, they're not going to buy it. And so you've got to come up with an offer that your ICA wants before you try to scale. Because again, if you try to scale before you have that offer that they actually want, even if it's something they need, you're not going to be successful. So after you've identified your ICA, the next step you got to do is find an offer that people actually want. And trying to scale before you're there is a mistake. That's going to mean a lot of money out the door. It's going to mean a lot of heartache. And again, do some people get it right, get lucky? Sure. I mean, some people, create an offer and immediately try to scale it, and it just so happens that they did it right. But what I'll tell you is, from my experience, that happens less than you would expect. Most people, it's the opposite. Most people, it is they try to scale something that's not popular, and so nothing good happens. So that's another mistake people make, is not having an offer. Then you have to understand, how are you actually going to sell whatever it is that you're offering? And this means you've got to have a launch mechanism or some kind of mechanism to get the sales process started. You have to know what's going to work for your business. Again, if you try to scale with the wrong kind of launch mechanism, things aren't going to work. And I'll use my recent launch as kind of an example of this. It's not an example of a horrible mistake, but I was using webinars, and, either our messaging was wrong or something. And so we were getting way too expensive costs to get people to register for my webinar. Now, some people would have just said, I don't care, throw more money at it, but let's still just keep spending and try to get more people. That would have been a mistake, because if I would have done that, I would have ended up paying way too much, and it wouldn't have worked. So you've got to find the right mix of a launch mechanism that's going to work for your audience, for your offer, based on what you need to convey to them. And you need to figure that out before you try to really scale. Because again, if your launch mechanism is wrong and you just throw money at it, you're not going to succeed. You're going to just end up with a lot of money going out and not a lot of good success. So that's kind of the last piece. Now, embedded in all of this that I've been talking about right now, these last couple of things, is this is something that again, maybe you're going to get mad at me for this, depending on your personality type. You got to know your numbers. I have so many times, and again, I was guilty of this for a long time. I didn't want to get into the numbers. I didn't want to really kind of go down to a granular level and walk through it. And that's a mistake. You've got to know numbers inside and out. Things like, what is my cost per lead? But more importantly, what's my cost per acquisition? In other words, what does it cost me to get a buyer? Not just a lead, because I don't want to get, cheap leads who then aren't going to convert. I would rather have a more expensive lead if they're going to convert. Ultimately, that's what matters, is what's the cost to get someone to buy something from you. But you also need to know things like earnings per lead. That's a very important metric. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that today, but in other words, it's like, hey, I got 100 people on my list, or on the launch list, and I made $10,000. That would mean you have an EPL of what's that, 100. So it's 100 or 10,000 divided by 100. It's basically, what do you make for every person that goes through your sales process, your launch process? That's an important metric, because it tells you how much you can spend. If you make $100 on average for every person, you should gladly spend $40 even to get someone into that funnel, because you're going to more than double your money. But you've got to know your numbers before you can even think about scaling. So you've got to have that set up. Then, you've got to have a traffic strategy. So you have to have a plan for how am I going to get people into this to scale. And you can't outsource this 100%. I mean, this is part of scaling, right? As you're going to do it, but you need to be thinking about multiple ways. Am I going to use Facebook ads only? Am I going to use organic traffic? Am I going to use Pinterest? Am I going to use, going into Facebook groups? What am I going to do exactly to get the traffic on my offer? So you got to come up with that. And quite honestly, you're going to want to tweak that. You're going to want to be doing that stuff before you try to scale. And let me use Facebook ads as an example. If that's going to be an important part of your strategy, you don't want to wait until you launch to try it for the first time. You need to be using Facebook ads in small increments before to do things like testing audiences. And I'll use an example here that's really weird, that when I tell people this, they're always confused. I always want Amy Porterfield's crowd, meaning on Facebook, you can target people who are, somehow have shown an affinity or a like towards someone. And I always want to target Amy Porterfield's crowd. A lot of people, it works for them. I've heard a lot of other online marketers get great success. I can tell you candidly, it's not been successful for me. Even though I've been on her podcast, even though I'm an ambassador in one of her programs, even though I'm a loudmouth in all of her groups, I mean, in a good way and helping people, etc. When I try to target her audience, it doesn't work. Well, I know that because I tried it in low stress environments. I didn't wait until I was launching and say, let's spend, $100 or $50 or $150 a day sending ads to her audience. If I had waited and hadn't actually kind of tested out and done some tweaking, etc., I wouldn't have known that. And I probably would have ended up spending too much money, not for a good result. So that's the kind of thing that you need to do. And I use Facebook ads as an example, but if you're going to use Pinterest, you need to experiment with Pinterest in advance. And again, Pinterest, I've got a Pinterest person and my VA is working on it. And as I understand it, it's a slow process. It's kind of like SEO. It's going to take you a while to get good results. So again, that one especially you need to do. But if you're going to use blogging or SEO, et cetera, you need to be doing that consistently to find what resonates and to start using it. So test it in advance. And now I couldn't go this whole video without mentioning something that obviously me, from my perspective as a lawyer, is a critical aspect before you start to try to scale your business. You've got to have your legal foundation set before you try to scale. And the reason I use this is, look, when you are doing, a little bit of business at the beginning, if you make a legal mistake, okay, it's going to cost you some money. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be something you like, but okay, it's one thing. But once you scale, what could be kind of an annoyance early on in your business could be a catastrophe. Like if you don't have a refund policy, for example, and you sell a course without a refund policy, guess what? All of a sudden you may be issuing refunds here, there, yonder, and everywhere else because you don't have a policy in place. And so that's just kind of an example of it. But another example is as you scale and you start having contractors, employees, et cetera, working for you, you've got to have a legal structure set up so that if they make a mistake, yes, it could hurt your business, but it's not going to come back and put you personally on the line. So in other words, my house, my car, my personal assets aren't going to be on the line if my VA messes something up, because I have an LLC. So these are some of the things you just have to do from a legal perspective. And there's a lot more, and I'm not going to go into all the detail here, but you literally should not even think about scaling your business until you've taken the time to make sure you have the legal foundations in place too. So again, there's all the business foundations we talked about. Know your audience, have an offer they want, have a launch mechanism, know your numbers, know your traffic strategy, all of that stuff critical. Just as critical, get your legal stuff taken care of, get your legal foundation set so that you can build your business for the future. So that's what I've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm actually going to be coming live on the page, my plan, 2 to 3 times a week. My goal is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, different topics. Monday is going to be more like this one, talking about, kind of marketing and big high level business building concepts. Wednesdays are going to be legal lessons, and Fridays are going to be mindset type of issues for an online entrepreneur. And don't worry, it's not too woo-woo, although I'm starting to believe in that stuff, but it's going to be kind of more things that you can implement. So that's the plan. So I hope you'll kind of, make try to join me from time to time on these. If you have questions, obviously feel free to let me know. If you're enjoying this, if you are, kind of enjoying these kinds of conversations and want to have more, the best thing to do is to join my free Facebook group. It's called the Online Genius Community. You can join for free by going to youronlinegenius.com/community. Again, youronlinegenius.com/community. It's a community of online entrepreneurs who are trying to build their business the right way for the long haul, not trying to, just immediately make $1 million and get out there like, hey, I want to build a business, to serve people, et cetera, and do it the right way. We have great conversations in there. So I would love for you to join me. And that's my call to action for you is join me there. Go to youronlinegenius.com/community. That's it for today. I'll talk to you later this week.